The principle of the wisdom of a crowd is, I believe, a very interesting investment phenomenon. It's the idea that a crowd can do a better job at predicting the value of a stock or the value of some event or the odds of some event happening is better at predicting that than an individual person or an expert. And this observation all started at a farmer's fair where 800 fairgoers were asked to guess the weight of a butchered ox to win a prize. And so 800 fairgoers gave their guesses, experts gave their guesses, and so of course there was a winner, but the winner was way off, and the experts were way off to the true weight of the butchered ox. But the fair observed that if they did some statistical analysis and took the mean prediction of all 800 people who entered the contest, they got almost exactly the weight of the ox. It was only off by 1 pound. So the ox ended up weighing 1,198 pounds, and they guessed 1,197 pounds. So if you average people's opinions about the weight of the ox, that was almost right. And so this is a concept that has been observed everywhere, which is whenever people's opinion merge onto something, they end up being correct. It's called the wisdom of the crowd. It's a phenomenon. It does not work for everything, but it's been known to work enough that there's been entire books written about it. This is actually a really, really great book about the wisdom of the crowd. And it's also become an investment concept. So wisdom of the crowd is a theory that assumes large crowds are collectively smarter than individual experts. It believes that collective knowledge and opinions of a group are better at decision-making, problem-solving, and innovating than an individual. And how can we apply that for investing? Well, today, retail investors, individual investors are very vocal and they're all over the internet. And you can kind of look at what stocks they like. And in 10 plus years of investing, there's a few key stocks that I remember investors were always pounding the table on. Investors were always very, very, very loud on YouTube, on podcasts, on social media. And so, of course, it's anecdotal, but let me give you an example of these few stocks that I vividly remember people, just telling me, buy. This is a stock that I missed. Apple. I remember back in the early 2010s, 2012, everybody was buying Apple. People were getting Apple stock for Christmas. It was like a whole thing. People were like, buy Apple, buy Apple, buy Apple. And what you find is that Apple was a wonderful investment. People just wouldn't shut up about Apple in the early 2010s. Everybody was like, you gotta buy Apple, right? And it was a stunning investment, absolutely outstanding investment. And keep in mind that's after the recent 1 year crash that we've had. So more than beat the market and more than beat the NASDAQ. That was Apple. But I remember two other stocks that everybody was pounding the table about and that I was late on. I was late buying, which was Tesla. If you remember 2016, 2017, you had a lot of people who were extremely vocal on Tesla, just like today. And of course, if you look at the return on Tesla, 44% average annual total returns, right? Nvidia is the same way. People were very, very vocal about Nvidia. Right after 2015, not shutting up about it. All they talked about. And what you see is Nvidia is 38%. So the point I'm trying to make is that there seems to be, to me at least, that's an anecdote. That's not a scientific fact, right? That's an anecdote, but I think it's an important data point. If you see like half the internet getting crazy about one stock, I think it's an important data point, and people always criticize that and say, oh, it's an echo chamber. But it's only an echo chamber if you don't analyze the facts for what they are, right? You need to have the ability to just analyze the fact that are put forward by the crowd and judge them for their own sake and not just trust what everyone says, kind of do logic on your own. And the arguments of the people pushing Tesla and Nvidia, I believe, are pretty darn sound. And for Apple, I wish I could have seen Apple back in the day, but I was not an Apple user. And so I didn't really catch Apple, right? You see this with Tesla. Tesla right now. People who have bought Teslas, they get crazy about Teslas. They can't stop talking about Tesla. So I think there's something that can be read about the wisdom of a crowd. And let me finish this by looking at what are some of the most popular stock among retail investors right now. I think this is very, very telling. This is the list of all popular stocks among retail investors. There is not a single. I guess ETFs. I would not recommend ETFs. I don't recommend any stocks on this channel. It's just entertainment. But I believe a lot of these stocks are going to be recommended by ETFs. A lot of these are going to be disrupted. But if we remove the ETFs, which have a lot of energy right now, overweighted energy. Anyways, I don't like ETFs. But if we remove the ETFs, it's Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Microsoft, and Nvidia, and Alphabet. And the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq is a good ETF. I like the Nasdaq. When you look at that, you're like, yeah, these I would argue would make a portfolio that's going to more than outpace the indices. It would absolutely more than outpace the indices. I believe. You'd have a hard time arguing against any of these investments, in my humble opinion. Although obviously I do believe that Apple is very slow growth, and Tesla probably the best on this list. Amazon's pretty good. Microsoft's pretty good. Alphabet, Google is I think would be my second favorite on the list, and then maybe Nvidia as a third. Nvidia and Google maybe a tie. Amazon more slow growth, right? So this is kind of interesting. That this is the stocks that retail investors are buying right now, and these I would believe are good stocks, right? I want to also point your attention to this ETF, which I found very interesting. This is investing. So, of course, interesting to know what ETFs are invested, but it's the SoFi Social 50 ETF. So this focuses on the 50 most widely held listed stock on SoFi Invest, which is, I think, very interesting to know, right? To know which is the most popular stock right now and which stock the crowd likes the most. And if you look at that, it's actually, we get something very similar to what the Motley Fool is saying here, but we see the popular stocks, right? So Apple, Amazon, Tesla, Nvidia, Microsoft, Alphabet, Rivian has a very, very huge community of followers. I don't know much about Rivian because my position in Tesla, I'm betting on Tesla, so I don't know much about Rivian. Walt Disney, right? A lot of people are saying it's a tax on having children. A lot of people love Walt Disney as a company. And then AMC is more of a special situation right here. And Berkshire, but if you invest in Berkshire, frankly, one of the questions you have to ask yourself here is, are you just making a bet on Tesla? Right, on Tesla, sorry, on Apple. Berkshire is a hidden bet on Apple because they own so much of Apple stock. So, anyways, I think this is very interesting. And let me conclude about the wisdom of a crowd. So, the wisdom of a crowd method, that's just one data point. It will only ever be one data point and nothing more than one data point. I would never say buy a stock because the crowd buys it. But I think when you go back to the ox example and the fact that you have 800 people guessing the exact weight of the ox, I think it's a data point. It's a data point in my opinion. The arguments of a crowd, they need to be analyzed for their merits. And you just not need to trust, someone just says, oh, this is a great stock because of just because I like it. And there's clearly special situation like AMC and GameStop were special situations of a short squeeze, and so they would not qualify for wisdom of a crowd stock. This was more short-term speculation. Although I do have a lot of things to say about this madness that AMC and GameStop was. But what are some of the crowd preferred stocks right now that I see? And again, this is anecdotal. This is an intuition. This is not science, right? But tier one, I would argue that right now, the stocks that people just don't stop talking about and won't shut up about are Tesla, Nvidia, and we've had those for the past 5 years at least. And then the third one, very interestingly, is Palantir. You have how many YouTube channel only dedicated to Palantir do you have? Quite a bit. So I would put Palantir as one of the tier one crowd preferred stocks. And then in tier two, the stocks that I see stand out is SoFi. So SoFi in fintech, huge following for SoFi. So there may be something going on with SoFi. And then Disney, even though Disney is not a stock that I would be interested in as I'm not value at all. You can see in the value crowd, a lot of people are just pounding the table on Disney. And so again, these are just data points, not investment advice. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.